This has everything to do with Heineken, as we know, the beer brand, and they're coming down on what Pepsi
essentially,
in their advertisement. Remember with Kendall Jenner and that controversy that erupted online. So what's Heineken doing?
So Heineken has just launched a new campaign, hashtag Open Your World. It's called the Worlds Apart ad, and it has since gone viral. Just kind of came out at the end of April. So what it is, let me just go through this 4-minute depiction for you, okay? It's a more than 4-minute clip, and it shows 6 people tackling topics: feminism, the LGBT community, climate change. In it, Heineken brings people together with unknowingly opposing worldviews. So they don't know each other's views, they have not met before, they don't really give them a big introduction, but then they have them complete a task. So they're working together, they have no idea about each other's background. Then at the end, they've built a bar. And then Heineken comes out with 2 beers. And then they say, okay, now watch the video of each other's worldviews. And so each person has to see what the other's worldview is. Then they say, now it is your choice, knowing that you have opposing views in the world because they were specifically placed together. Here are 2 beers. Do you want to choose to sit and have a beer and talk about things? Or do you want to get up and walk away?
So those were the only 2 options.
Those were the options.
Okay.
So a lot of people are saying that this was a great representation of world conflict and bringing people together, and the idea that people may not know a lot about your view, or they choose not to learn about your view, might be the reason solely for not really understanding it. So their point is, you may not know the person next to you is transgender, but you may dislike transgenders. But why? What's your purpose for that? You may not know the person next to you is gay, but you may think you hate gay people. So they're trying to say, if you didn't know somebody from the very get-go and you had to complete a task, at the end of that, where are we now? And I personally thought it was pretty powerful, but it is getting a lot of backlash online. People saying another company using the social views of the world to try to capitalize and get some money in for their company.
Well, and before we started taping, I heard a little bit about this a couple of days ago, and I heard the other side. So while the idea was, it was a good idea to bring people together, you have to talk out your differences. A lot of the discussion was when it comes to trans issues and issues of sexism or racism or bigotry, anything like that. A lot of those discussions aren't just discussions, because at some point they affect people's lives in sometimes dangerous ways. So to kind of blanket it under like, oh yeah, let's just have a beer and talk about how you're socially violent against me. You know, it was kind of like that. So I think that was the other side of the argument, kind of downplaying what it means to be sexist or be against trans people, or you know. So that was 2 different sides, and it just depends on how you look at it. But I do think in regards to pushing the conversation forward, because a lot of times people don't know certain things because they don't know anybody. And when I meet anybody, just ask yourself, how many people of color do you know? And not your one coworker or your neighbor. Do you really know someone? How many trans people do you know? If you
to pass judgment.
To pass judgment. So if you don't know someone, then you're less likely to really know how other people feel or how they view the world. So the fact that they were having a conversation in the commercial and trying to get to know people before showing what they thought about it, I like that aspect of it.
And in one breath, to your point, because I'm sitting here and thinking about it, we've been hearing about this story, but it was the first time this morning that we actually sat and watched. At least, do we know if it was a series of different conversations, or is it the same exact ad being replayed?
So right now online, it's a 4.5-minute
which is long
video, and so I don't know if they're going to break that up and then put it on TV. I haven't seen the TV commercial for it yet, but right now it's just a whole compilation of it all. Our producer says they have done 30-second ad spots though, so you're seeing bits of those conversations, I believe.
Because I'm interested to know, you know, from Cornelia's side of it, and when she first heard about this, is it the same approach essentially that Pepsi took with this one Pepsi can stop all of the controversy?
And that was just ridiculous.
At a rally, you know, at a protest. Is it the same way that if you sit down with a beer, you know, can you really solve the world's issues? Not necessarily, but that's maybe taking it too literal.
Yeah, I mean, and not to say that, you know, all of these issues aren't important. If you don't dig in too deep though, and you just see it on the surface, probably the way that Heineken wanted it portrayed.
Yeah, this is an ad.
People have a beer and they talk about things.
Yeah.
And
loosen up a little bit.
Yeah, and not to say that all of these different racial groups and the different, you know, communities, not all of these people and different organizations and groups matter. But when you think about it, like, can you just have a beer with someone and not have so much hate for them?
Yeah.
I mean, I think I actually kind of liked the fact that they had to start out not knowing each other, and then they completed a task. I thought that was really interesting, because then it gets you thinking about totally different, you know, how to work together, how to be able to function with somebody else, and which parts of your brain you're going to use, and what, you know. And so I actually thought, if you don't go too deep into the fact that this is a campaign about world issues, it sparked something in me when I watched it.
I do know, though, alcohol and politics.
True.
In my family, you sit down and you have a conversation. You bring up Trump and Hillary or anything political or transgender issues or whatever it may be, and it just turns into this, like, you know what? Let's keep this off the Thanksgiving table. Let's not talk about
sometimes the only way to
politics.
be with family is with a glass of wine.
And sometimes the only way to work stuff out is if you talk to it.
And if you talk about it sober, though.
It gets dirty, but you got to get in the weeds. You got to get in the weeds. So,
but I think, to Cornelia's point, how many people of that community that at this point you think that you don't like, do you actually know? And I think that's a really important question.
And that you can walk away being someone's friend and not agree with them politically. I think that is also another point. We all have opinions in this world, especially in this world, this digital age that we live in. Sometimes you just got to agree to disagree. And we'll leave it at that.